Hi, Wally, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
I can hear. Okay, perfect. One question: are you certified PhD? So I can call you Dr. Wally, or not yet?
Yes, certified.
Okay, sorry. So I don't just.
Even though the title really doesn't matter that much to me, but yeah, it's official.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's okay. 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 So we just have a couple of more seconds, and officially to be 3 p.m. and I guess we'll start then. 20 seconds or so. I think we're good. Okay, so hello everyone. Good. Well, I should probably not bother saying good afternoon or good morning or good evening, because at least I know people are coming in from different, or what I assume people are coming in from, I know different people are coming in from different parts of the world. So just to say welcome, and I'm glad to have you here. As you saw in the invites, at least for those who got the invites, some people probably just got the Zoom link, which is perfectly fine as well. But for those of you who saw the invite, this is really just a hangout with a couple of industry professionals. And I should probably start by saying that they reached out to me particularly. The two professionals we have in today, at least the two official professionals we have in today, we'll have a couple of other professionals who will come in, even though they may just observe, even if they don't specifically present today. But the two professionals that we have today, Mr. Adedayo, Omotunde, and Mr. Folu Dele-Ijagbulu, both graduated from the Department of Electronic and Electrical Engineering, and they reached out to me saying that they really are concerned about our students and trying to figure out how to get our students to best prepare themselves for the workplace when they finish. So this really is at their instance, and that's really a very beautiful thing, I think. So the purpose of this really, so let's say the title for today, really, we just pick the title, which is preparing yourself to make a big impact. And the whole idea is, how can you train yourself? How can you educate yourself? How can you enlighten yourself? Have a mindset twist and shift such that you can be very successful out there, well, as a professional out there. So primarily, we probably will have a number of students on, particularly year 4 and year 5. However, this is not in any way limited to students. It's not in any way limited to OAU students or to elect students. So while the Hangout is on, if you really want, feel free to share the link with anyone else. And I should probably also mention we are live streaming this on YouTube at present. I put up the link in the chat a few minutes ago, but I can post the link again. Just if you want to share that again, people who are just watching on YouTube. I cannot promise that I'll be able to monitor YouTube in case people have questions on YouTube. However, questions can be posted here. So if you have a question at any point in time, please feel free to post it in on the chat window. And after a couple of presentations from both resource persons, we will try to get to the questions. And so the schedule is something like this. After this introduction, which I'm doing, then we have a presentation from Dayo. And after he is done, we'll have a presentation from Folu. Each presentation will be there about 15 minutes plus or minus. After that, we have questions. We are hoping to keep this session to about 1 hour, give or take. So just so you have some information about the program for today. So if it's okay, let's just go ahead and dive into the first presentation. And I'd like to introduce the first presenter. So Adedayo Omotunde is an alumnus of the Department of Electronic and Electrical Engineering, and he is a telecommunications professional currently based out of Dubai. He has an executive MBA from OAU, a telecoms MBA from the University of Derby, an MSc from Swiss Business School, and strategic management training from the University of San Diego. He also has executive education from MIT and several professional certifications. Dayo has worked with 3 Fortune 500 companies and has over 15 years of experience in telecoms. He has consulted for clients in 16 countries. A major milestone of his professional career was his successful deployment of a fintech platform for a telco client with presence across Middle East and Africa. Now, in 2019, the total value of processed transactions of the fintech platform surpassed $56 billion. He's a published author and has successfully established several startup businesses in hospitality, agriculture, real estate, and in the IT industry. Dayo is a devoted Christian and is married and has 2 lovely daughters. Dayo, you're highly welcome. And I'll give the floor to you. I believe you will share your screen.
Thank you, Dr. Wale. Please let me know when you're able to see my screen.
Yep, I can see your screen now. It's perfect.
Okay. So once again, thank you, Dr. Wale, for all the efforts you put into organizing this. I feel excited about having this opportunity to give back to elected department, OAU, in my own little way. I also feel challenged because I know it's a community of intellectuals, right? And Folu and yourselves, you have first-class brains, PhD. So I have to be careful to find something to say that will inspire you, and as well as the audience. So it's a bit challenging, but I'll give it my best shot. Today, the title might sound a bit complex, right? But it's actually a simple thing. And I intend to show us how we can consistently create value by understanding that when you have discontinuity in technology, it's an opportunity to actually innovate and to create wealth, right? And I'll break this down into very simple concepts that can be easily understood and they're applied. So 3 things I just want to say, right, in a few minutes. Number 1, I will try to explain the principle of dominant design. I'll also try to give examples, 3 examples of how people have created value, created wealth, prosperity, employment, increased the GDP of the nations by stimulating discontinuity or leveraging discontinuity. And then the final part will be to explain to you, I mean, majority of the audience are students of the elected department, how you can actually apply these things right away. If that's okay, I'll dive into it. So the simple explanation is as follows. Technology moves in cycles. And when you have the commencement or the introduction of a new product or a new industry, right? It is typically as a result of a technological discontinuity. So when you have that example, at some point, human beings had the desire, they were tired of moving about on railroads and steam engines. They wanted to fly, right? So you had a lot of people that started investigating different ways to achieve that means of transportation via air, and I'm sure you've seen pictures and images online, right, of people strapping wings to their arms and trying to jump off cliffs to see if they would float and go. You had people that created some kind of mechanisms where they would pedal, right, and they had wings and they tried to float. All manner of things were done. So you have a desire out there, the industry is trying to create something, and you have a process where a lot of producers, a lot of manufacturers come up with different designs that don't have any kind of consistent approach, right? So if you want to speak a bit in technical lingua, you might say they create components that don't have standard APIs. So one system cannot speak to a system provided by one provider cannot communicate with equipment provided by another provider, right? Because there's no standard in the industry yet. Everybody's just trying to come up with something. So that is a period where you have the fermenting phase. And gradually, one player is going to get it right. One player is going to add components to the core design that makes that component and that design and that product more appealing to the market. So by the principle of natural selection and user feedback, you realize that that one manufacturer gains market share. That one manufacturer sells a bit more of their products or services to the target market segment. And what happens is that other manufacturers, other producers, of course, start copying. They start imitating whatever the attributes are of that successful product into theirs. And at that point, you will have the emergence of a dominant design. Now, when you have that dominant design in place, typically the design becomes the standard, it becomes the industry norm. So when you define that product, the attributes of that design, the dominant design, are the things that you will see, regardless of who manufactured the product. And going forward, what you would observe is that you will then start seeing incremental changes, incremental enhancements to the dominant design, up until the point when, again, there's another disruption, you have the technology discontinuity, and then the whole cycle repeats itself again. This is a simple concept. It's relatable. I'll give you an example, which I believe majority of us will be familiar with. So if you look at the journey of handheld devices, in Nigeria, I believe GSM was launched around 2002, 2003. And then you had, all manner of handheld devices. Some had antennas, some had flip covers, some had no antennas, and so on and so forth. There was no consistent design, right? Gradually, this was global. I just tried to explain how we saw it from a Nigerian standpoint. But this was a general trend everywhere, because these equipments were produced by foreign manufacturers, even though they were shipped into Nigeria. So you had all manner of designs. There was no dominant design up until around 2007, 2008, when iPhone was introduced. And when iPhone was introduced, it was groundbreaking. A lot of the attributes that the manufacturers of an iPhone, Apple of course, added into that design became copied by other producers. And gradually, up until now, you realize that that dominant design has persisted. So ask yourself, any phone you hold today, whether it's from Apple, whether it's from Samsung, Huawei, and so on, they all have similar attributes, right? Regardless of who manufactured the phone today, it's going to have an OS that can be upgraded from time to time, right? It will have an app store, it has multifunction, it will have cameras, and so on and so forth. Most likely, it will have touchscreen input, right? And an internal battery. You charge it, and you can use it for a couple of hours or days. So since the last 6-7 years, it has been a consistent dominant design. And what we've experienced are simply incremental enhancements of the dominant design. So today, you have a new iPhone released this year, it will have one more camera added to the back, or two cameras to the front screen, or the quality of the pictures or images that you can get from the camera, right, it gets improved a bit, but the concept remains the same thing. Nothing has changed, nothing is new. And sometimes people even question the rationale behind buying the latest releases, because they're all the same, to be honest, right? If you're being very objective, right? So that simply explains the concept of the dominant design, right? And you see this everywhere. In industries, there are processes that have emerged over time, and then you have a dominant design for the business process, which every other person that is trying to get into the industry just simply copy and pastes and replicate the success, right? It works, to be honest. But the thing is, you create value, you create a unique selling proposition when you're able to first identify what is the dominant design and then challenge it. Either you try to add an incremental change to the dominant design, again, based on the level of your research or skill sets, or you try to totally reconstruct the dominant design. So just a few tips how to challenge the dominant design. So the first step obviously is to be able to establish a definition, to be able to define, capture, and describe the dominant design of that product, of that service, of the industry, right? And then begin to question, is there no way we can do this better, right? Again, depending on the capability of whoever is asking this question, you can opt for an incremental improvement of the dominant design. How do you do that? You look at how can you enhance the customer experience? Some people focus on, oh, the product is the same thing, but we can change the packaging. How the product is delivered to you, we can redesign that to give a better user experience. When there's a defect and someone calls a customer care line, how they are treated, again, can be a unique selling proposition. So people will actually align with a service provider because they enjoy better customer service, right? But the service is exactly the same as the other competitors' service, but they look for an area that they can tweak, they can modify. I mentioned this earlier on. People also take existing features of the dominant design and then they modify it just a bit, they improve it a bit. So someone might take the battery life and say, look, all these touchscreen phones, as an example, the batteries don't last more than, let's say, 24 hours. You need to recharge them. Okay, how about researching the battery, finding whoever can supply me batteries that can last longer, such that I can actually penetrate a market where people don't have access to charge their phones frequently. So these batteries are going to last 1 week. So you've made an incremental enhancement of the dominant design. The core concept of the phone remains the same thing, but you've modified or enhanced one attribute of the dominant design, and then you try to create some kind of a unique selling proposition. And then some other people, take the bull by the horn, you actually challenge the dominant design and say, well, how can I overhaul the status quo? How can I change this altogether? And one simple way, again, just to give tips, is that you can look at attributes of an adjacent product or industry and slap it onto the industry you're trying to disrupt. And by doing that, you can create something new and novel. Example is iPhone that we started with. iPhone, what did Apple do in 2007, 2008? They actually took the Walkman, right, which had become transformed into iPod, and they slapped it into a phone. So all of a sudden, people could carry their music all about. And then in that same breath, they tried to checkmate music piracy. So they created an app store where you could actually purchase music, and they disrupted things at that point in time. So one of the things you can do is to take products or features from an adjacent industry and slap it onto it. Another example I can give will be smartwatches. 2008, 2009, a lot of industry research and insights started saying that phones were cannibalizing almost everything, and even wristwatches. The Swiss watch industry was going to be cannibalized because the younger generation were no longer buying watches. Once they had a phone, they could check the time. And what does a watch do? It tells time. So why should I invest in buying a watch when I already have a phone and it can tell me the time 24/7? However, to revive the industry, what they've done is they took that basic item, phone, took attributes from another industry, having an upgradable OS, having sensors, and so on and so forth. They slapped it onto watches. And all of a sudden, they revived it. And now you have smartwatches everywhere. Even frontline switch watch manufacturers, right, Tag and so on, they've all started creating smartwatches. Why? Because they're trying to see how to challenge their own dominant design, create something new and novel, right, and create a shade for themselves. So that's a simple concept, right? And we've seen people apply it successfully to create new products and services. And let's go to the next one. So what I want to do next is to give you examples of people that have done this, right? Simple questioning of the dominant design, adding attributes of other industries, and then creating something quite valuable. So 2 examples. This gentleman here is Jeff Bezos. He's the CEO of Amazon. And as of today, he's the richest man on the face of the earth, right? He's worth $100 billion, right, plus. And what has he done? 1995, he looked at bookstores. If you wanted to buy a book at that point in time, you had to walk into Barnes and Nobles to check out what they had on display and then purchase it. So why can't we just move this, digitize this a bit, right? So he created an online bookshop, challenging again the dominant design when it came to book distribution. That's all he did, right? He didn't invent the internet. He didn't do anything special. There's no trace of a PhD thesis written by him, right, to create something, new, right? All he did was he took what was available, slapped them together, and created something totally new. Obviously, between then and now, a lot of decisions have been taken, man-made decisions, investments, risks, and so on. So it was a simple concept, but he's been able to grow that business since 1995 up to now to be the first $1 trillion company, one of the first trillion companies valued at over $1 trillion. Again, we have Mark Zuckerberg here as well. What did he do? When we were in high school, when you graduate, what you received to remember your classmates and so on was the yearbook. The print it out, you have a picture and some facts about you, right? But this was static data. And the challenge that we all had was that people's contact details change, right? We didn't even have emails then. So how do you keep in touch with someone? You have the pictures and so on, and you know it was your classmates, that's it, right? How do you make this information dynamic? How do you make it something that can be updated as this person continues to journey on through life, right? By the time we were finishing in 2002, 2003, we're all creating year cities. Again, the same challenge. You put all the fancy pictures and so on, and the bio data, right, there on the page, but it was static. 1 year down the line, how do you keep in touch with this person? So what did he do? He was just in Harvard as well. He challenged this design of yearbooks, right? How can I make this content dynamic? People can continue to add pictures, delete pictures, put their address information, or whatever information they're willing to disclose. That's all he did. He challenged that design of the yearbook that we always had, right? Slapped it, put it on the internet, and all of a sudden created something brilliant, Facebook, which today we all know the story. So these are two examples of people that have taken a basic understanding of the dominant design and then found ways to either challenge the dominant design, redesign, overhaul everything, or just increment it, depending on how you choose to see it, right? So those are two examples. But you can see, Dario, what are you talking about? These guys live where there's electricity 24/7, there's internet, they're not hungry, of course. So I thought to give an example that is closer home. Right, so here we are, Kokada. Again, we all know the dominant design regarding Okada business in Nigeria. It's unsafe. You get on the bike with a total stranger, you don't know whether it's qualified, you don't know whether it's going to crash you, you don't know anything about this person, right? And you had a gentleman, Adedayo, and Fahim, right, Lebanese, they came together 2017 and looked at this industry. How can they transform it into something that is structured? Is there a question? Okay, so how can they transform this industry into something more structured, where you can actually predict because when you stand on the road and you're waiting for an Okada, you can't tell whether you're going to stay for 5 minutes or 1 hour. You're just standing there hoping somebody will pass by. But how can they make sure that there's an interaction between the bike man who is looking for a passenger and the passenger who is looking for someone to give them a ride, right? How can they make sure that if a passenger has a good user experience, he can actually rate the rider as such that the next passenger that wants to use this rider can actually have some kind of means of evaluating whether they want to proceed or not, right? These are things that are not available in the typical Okada business. So they created that. Again, they took attributes from copy-paste. They didn't have to re-engineer anything. We all know that's business model from Uber, right? They took it, copy-paste into another industry, right in our midst. And guess what? They piloted service in Lagos in 2017. Within 2 years, they already had over 1,000 riders, and they were able to raise over $5 million US, right? Within 2 years in Nigeria. So much so that they started this luxury cruise service, right? Where people can actually order a ride from some part of Ikoyi all the way to the other side of Lagos Island. Simple stuff, simple concept, but they've created value, right? So what I'm trying to say is understanding first what is the dominant design, the attributes of the dominant design, and then decoupling it to say, what can I tweak here? If you just want to have an incremental enhancement, or if you want to overhaul it, what can I slap onto it to create something new? It's a simple concept. People practice this right in front of us, and they create marvelous things. There are many other examples, not just Kokada. You have Kobo 360 in Nigeria, again, doing extremely well. They're spread across West Africa as well, right? They've raised Series A funding in multiple millions of dollars. Simple thing, we have trailers, idle trailers, and you have producers that want to move their commodities from one end of town to the other one. How can we link them together in a digital manner? They put an app on top of this, and all of a sudden they've created something interesting, right? So this is the concept, and I believe it's quite simple. And if people can actually just be observant to see the trends around them, there are opportunities that can be leveraged all around us. Now, let me stitch it together. Where do you fit in this whole picture? And particularly now that we're in COVID-19 season, right? How do we stitch all this together? Number one, clear to all of us, is that COVID-19 has accelerated the need for the alteration of the dominant designs of many products and industries. That's obvious. We don't need to dwell on that. Any business today that requires footfall to thrive, so it could be
Hello, Daya, did we lose you? Sorry, it seems like Daya's connection is probably a little spotty. We'll see if we can get him back. Daya. Okay, so while we're trying to get him back, just to mention that if you have any questions, please feel free to post them into the chat window at any point in time. We hope to take the questions once we're done with the presentations. So still trying to get Daya back. Okay, so maybe Daya, hello, are you back? Okay, Daya.
Apologies. At what point did you lose me?
You were trying to tie things all together. So you just started talking about tying things all together, yeah.
Okay, okay. Let me just share my screen again.
Sure.
Please let me know when you see my screen.
Yeah, your screen is up.
Okay, good. So COVID-19 clearly has accelerated the need, right, for alteration of the dominant design of many products and services globally. Aviation industry, now we all know social distancing has to be respected, right? So airlines are struggling. You can't have, what is expected now is that typically in a 3-seat row, the middle seat should be left empty. The problem is when you do that, the price of the ticket of other 2 passengers will double or triple, right? So how do they manage this, right? So Boeing, Airbus, and all these guys need to start thinking in terms of design of the aircrafts, right? And of course, people are much more conscious about health and safety, right? Hygiene nowadays. So being crammed together in a flight for 13 hours with all of people right next to you, maybe people are not so happy to do that anymore. So there are many things. Of course, one way to handle this is that people might come up with new jacket designs and so on that actually cover almost all of your body and then your face as well. We'll see how things unfold. So that's one. In Nigeria, if you look at our context here in Nigeria, right? Any business in Nigeria that requires footfall to thrive, right? Creative content, showbiz, right? Concerts and all these kind of events, even cinema business, right? Events management, weddings, birthday parties, event centers, fitness, motivational speakers that need halls to be filled up with people for them to have the events, right? Or food and beverage in terms of restaurants, in terms of clubs and so on. All these places, their dominant design has to be overhauled, right? If what experts are saying, I pray it doesn't happen, but if what experts are saying comes true, COVID-19 is going to span 18 to 36 months, right? These businesses have to find a way forward between now and then, right? Whether it's a vaccine that is going to come or COVID itself miraculously disappears or whatever the case is, businesses have to continue, right? And as it is now, based on the current design that we have, they can't, right? So all these industries are there waiting for you and I to actually fashion a way forward, right? And that's where we are, and that's the challenge I'm trying to lay on you guys right now, that if you can take these learnings based on the examples you've seen and the simple concept, how do we transform these industries? How do we help all these guys that are waiting for you and I revitalize their businesses through a new design, right? Again, I believe some of us here are students, right? And we have two choices ahead of us. Either we go into self-employment or we try to start our own businesses, right? Or we go into paid employment. Now, if your objective is to seek paid employment, why don't you resolve that you're going to go into that paid employment and assist your employer to challenge and disrupt the industry? So you're not just going there to be one more employee. They tell you move this box from here to there, and that's all you do, and you wait for your salary. But you want to go there to innovate. You cannot change the world in one day. You could be that the simple thing you do is you go there, you see that there are inefficiencies in their internal processes, right? So to get an approval for some work to be done, maybe there are 5 steps. Can you help them simplify the process, right? While you still secure the right approvals along the steps. So if the process requires 10 steps, and you look at it and say, how do we design this to make it 7 steps? One of the things you will achieve is that you are increasing the rate at which transactions or businesses performed. So you're reducing cost for your employer. They will appreciate it. They will promote you for that. They will reward you for that, right? So not just going there saying, I'm looking for a job, but going there to say, look, I want to help you to optimize. I want to help you to challenge something. Again, if your ambition is to start up a business by yourself, again, don't fall into the trap of creating a Me Too product. Anyone can stand on the road to sell pure water. So don't go out there and start selling pure water, because you will never be known. You will never make a mark, right, on that industry. So if you're going to start up your own business, which is very much welcome, at least set out with an ambition, with an aspiration, that you go there from day one. You might not be able to overhaul the dominant design, but incrementally improve whatever it is that you're finding in that industry, right? Analyze the industry, understand the frameworks and everything that are operating in that industry before you dive into it. And then as you're going in, look at it and say, okay, I want to start by tackling the customer service. Yes, so many people are offering this service, but I'm going to differentiate myself by ensuring that the customer service, the feeling that people get when they procure the service from me is totally different. It's totally out of this world. You can do that easily, right? And so on and so forth, right? And then after a while, when you've developed sufficient wherewithal experience in that industry, you can actually aim to disrupt the entire industry, and it's achievable, right? Now, the final point and message I have for our friends in the like this, that COVID-19, we don't know for how long schools are going to be forced to be closed, right? Why don't you invest just a little fraction of your time in analyzing products, services that you see all around you, right? Ask, what is the dominant design here? How can that dominant design be enhanced, right? And depending again, because not every opportunity or not every challenge will be what you are suited to address, so it's not by force. But if there's any one of them that stands out, that speaks to your heart, why don't you ask yourself, what are the technical skills or business skills that you require to be able to actually tackle that problem, right? Increment the design, make it more efficient, whatever way you want to enhance it, right? And then when you've identified this, can that be a good candidate for your final year project? So rather than just idling at home now, watching Netflix and so on, why don't you put this together and say, let me take on this challenge? It's nothing so academic. Sit down, look around you, right? Everything you see around you, just map it. What are the attributes of this industry? What can be modified here? What can I borrow from another industry to challenge this dominant design? It's simple exercise, right? And once you start reflecting on these things, the thoughts will come to you. You speak with senior colleagues as well that can guide you along the way. And I believe this will be a productive way to use your time between now and when schools reopen. Just for your information, I put some links there. I believe majority of us should be familiar with this, but if you're not, there's Udemy, Khan Academy, Coursera, offering all manner of courses at $10, $15, which I believe reasonably we should be able to afford, right? And if you find something you want to challenge, it might require some technical skills. Again, you can sign up for these courses, invest your time to build the technical capability you require to be able to add value in that space. So at this point, I thank you for your attention and feel free to ask questions if you have any.
Thank you very, very, very much. We really appreciate the presentation. I think it was quite clear, and I believe that questions will be coming in soon. Okay, so I want to remind everyone that, as I said earlier on, if you have questions for at any point in time, please feel free to post them in on the chat. And when we're done with the second presentation, we'll take as many questions as we can. So just to remind you about that. So let's go straight to the second presentation of the day. And so Folu Dele-Ijagbulu is also a professional, also finished from the Department of Electronic and Electrical Engineering in 2003. Well, the 2003 sets, even though it finished in 2004. Finished with the first class, and I should probably mention, finished as the best graduating student of the department in that year. After that, he has worked in a couple of companies, presently works with Mobile Corporation, has started a number of companies, and I know he has an MBA from INSEAD in France. I know I've not done good justice to this introduction, but I would like to just call up Folu to probably help me also finish up the introduction and start the presentation.
All right. Okay, let's bring it up. All right, good day, everyone. It's a privilege to be able to share. I believe you can all hear me, right?
Loud and clear.
Okay, on my screen, what do you call it? My presentation is up, right?
Yes.
Okay. So Wale has pretty much summarized my experience. Finishing from IFE, I had a short stint with KPMG, worked with Imo State. Then I worked with Philips Consulting before joining ExxonMobil. Ever since that time, I've stayed with ExxonMobil. I'm not into startups in terms of starting businesses myself, but I've had few sidebars with various organizations. Okay, so time has run a bit, so let me quickly dive into the conversation. So we're talking about the role of engineers in a post-COVID world, and why we're so important and businesses really cannot do without us. So let me ask, who is an engineer. An engineer really is somebody who knows maths and science and applies it. As a sort of like an applied engineering, I know the vast majority of folks who registered for the training, who registered for this chat, is really into engineering. So congratulations, you chose the right course. If you were in doubt before about the course that you chose, let me congratulate you, you chose the right one. Because it gives you a privilege of being sensitive to people's pain. You are sensitive to people's pain, both your own personal pain and the pain of those around you. And I'm going somewhere with that because we not only are sensitive to people's pain, we use the principles of science and maths that we learned to solve that pain. So that's where we're slightly very different from the scientist. The scientists will say 2 plus 2, but pretty much that's where it ends. We are the ones that are constructing that, well, you need 2 tires plus 2 tires to have a stable car. That's where we transit. That we've looked at it that when you have 2 tires, the best you can form is a motorcycle or a bicycle, but it's not very stable. But we understood the concept of stability that even when you have 3 tires, it doesn't quite work. But if you have 4 tires, it's a very stable vehicle. Talking about dominant design, you've seen all kinds of fine cars, all kinds of improvements. But after cars reach 4 tires, that has not changed to Dio's current. But it's because we understand the maths, it's because we understand the science. So I encourage you that you've chosen engineering, you chose the correct you chose the correct field because you understand the maths, you understand the science, and you apply it. And the beautiful thing about you as an engineer is that you are clever, you are original, and you are inventive. I need you to have that confidence in yourself that you can create stuff. Not every some other, what do you call it? I don't like to mention names. If not, I would have mentioned people like the accountants. It's really around compliance with standards but for us is that by nature of our role, our job is to create stuff. And we do that, and you can do that. And I need you to always have that confidence that you can do that. You need to always really truly believe in yourself and your ability to create. But as we are having the going along, I would love you to chart whether you intend to want to sort of start your own business or whether you intend to work in a business. And if you intend to work in a business, just chart the kind of business that you want to work in. I'd love to see that. Because very quickly I'll be moving on to what is a business. A business is essentially a system that is created to solve problems for profit. No fancy definition. Whether it's the big one at Google where they are trying to organize all the world's information, or the woman that is beside the street that sells boli, roasted corn for those who don't know what that is, roasted plantain for those who don't know what that is. They are solving problems, and they are solving it for a profit because they need to make money. That's the only way they will keep on operating. The goal of business is value creation, which is solving problems. Value creation in a profit-oriented business is to increase income, not just revenues, but profit. Because I'm sure I said I don't like to mention names, but we can mention, if I will mention names, I'll mention the likes of Uber and the likes of some of these other organizations that are losing money left, right, and center, but it's not a sustainable model. After a while, something will blow. Another classic case like that is WeWork. I'm sure many of you heard about them in the news and how much of a challenge they have become. Because one can even challenge whether they were creating value, but of course they were making revenues, but definitely not profit. And it's essential that you understand that when you are joining a business, when you are working with a business, it is essential that you bear in mind that you need to help them make profit. So how do they make profit? 2 ways. You're either making more money and keeping your costs flat, or you are making the same money or reducing your cost, or doing both. And as we are going along, I want you to look at the picture of the young man on the right because we're going to be discussing him shortly. But you as an engineer in business, and this is a mindset that will help you, again, sort of flowing from what I started with, the concept of the dominant design is that you are looking for ways to help people solve problems. And I want you to know that even though you may think that you are just in year 3, yeah, when did you leave secondary school, that these people think you are already getting the training. The challenge with very many of us as engineers and some of our training is that you are not quite sure when you really became an engineer. But trust me, every single day that you sit down in that MTH class, that CHE class, that EE class, that CSE class, every single day you are learning a new skill. And it is those skills that you are putting together, and it's like they are giving you a toolbox. And unlike the kind of toolbox that you go to ShopRite to get, that is like they are giving you today, they give you a spanner. Today, they are giving you a screwdriver. Tomorrow, they are giving you a wheel spanner. Tomorrow, they are giving you a jack. But it's for you to begin to see that all of these are tools for you to solve problems. So what are the typical problems that we solve in businesses? Very many of us, especially if you look at your introduction and some of the examples, is that we need to solve problems internally. And we don't even need to wait for COVID before we begin to solve the problems, because real wisdom lies in solving the problems long before the crisis starts. There is wisdom in building a house before the flood starts, not after it starts. Yes, there is the story of the foolish man that built his house on the sand, but at least he had more wisdom to even build the house even before the storm started. But that's why we need to begin to innovate long before the next crisis shows up. More crises will come. So what are the problems what are the frameworks to help you think about customer problems? You can think of the product in itself and see, how do we get this product to people? The pricing of the product, the ease of payment, or the ease of delivery. Let me dive into the example of the ease of payment. I don't know how many of you still have the previous, back in the days, the only way to pay for airtime was to buy recharge cards. Then you go through the pain of scratching the recharge card. I know some of you have your videos on. If you've ever scratched the card and missed the card and you were worried about losing your money, please just wave. I don't want people to just wave. If you've ever scratched that, yes, okay. So a lot of people, please, you can turn on your video so that we can see. We've gone through that pain before. But one engineer figured out that, see, we can solve this problem in a different way. And he created star 737 GT Bank. I know several banks, other banks have copied it, but the guy figured out that these people have phones, these people have phone number, these people have these things already. Why don't we just give them one simple code, star 737 star 500 hash, press enter like this, credit gets to your phone, they make money, you make money. And the thing literally exploded. I was speaking with a friend of mine who worked in that, who had oversight over that business, and was telling me about the explosion, how before they used to be a terrible call center, they were like the black sheep. All of a sudden, that unit was making plenty money. Now, star 737 is all over and everybody is singing about it. I'm sure you will recall that advert of the woman who before now, one man who was trying to call his girlfriend, and in the night had to call the woman who was selling recharge card, and that one was beating him up, thinking he was boyfriend from somewhere. But what they figured out was the ease of payment, and it eliminated the stress of buying the recharge card, finding where to throw the rubbish paper, tearing the paper, scratching it. All the call centers that they used, calls that they used to leave, all of that just sorted. Think about, I'm looking at time, so I won't give too much examples. If we look at the problem of like the tailor, how many of you, I can see that some of you are wearing native, how many of you for your delivery that when you had to make this, many of our tailors that sit down beside us, they will first of all come to your house to measure you. Am I right? Just wait if I'm right. They come to your house, they'll measure you. Then after that, they'll take measurements. Then after that, you come to their house, they would try it. If it doesn't fit, you go and you come back again. And God help you, by the time the clothes is finally ready, the event may have passed. But the reality is that TM Lewin on the other side just tells you, measure yourself. Buy it online. In a few days, we will use UPS, we will deliver it to your place. Guess who sells more clothes? Is it the one beside your house or TM? Because they had somebody who realized that, see, human beings tend to fall into categories. The funny thing is the fact that our own traditional clothes are even less fitting than our own. So ours are the one that really should be able to just say, choose medium, small, large. Everybody probably will fall into it. It's Agbada after all. You really cannot get the size wrong too hard. But it's for you as an engineer to begin to see that, see, the people that sit around you have challenges, they have problems. Can you use your engineering knowledge to solve it? And sometimes you may be able to say that, oh, I don't have big tech, I don't have big technology mindset. They've not taught us how to code Java, Python, everything, put everything together, script, database, inquiry. Yes, you may not, but there are some existing technologies that you currently have access to. Excel is a powerful tool. PowerPoint, so they are powerful tools. I'll share a personal example. One of the things that the organization that I work for, I understand that in Nigeria, where we had already been subscribing for a service, it's called DocuSign, that allows you to sign electronically. I was brought into a particular team to lead the team, and part of it is responsibility for technology solutions. And for that, for our unit. And we basically sort of just took, wait, hold on, we have this ability to sign electronically. Why are we still carrying paper as they did 2,000 years ago? That people needed to sign paper. Wait, what's this? So we basically had something else that we were responsible for. But we basically moved virtually the entire company of over 5,000 people to migrate them to electronic technology, so that from anywhere anybody is, you don't need to bring the paper to any manager or any boss. You basically send it to them electronically over their phone, they sign and they are fine. And we let that change. It took about 6 months, but the whole of 2018, we were ready for it. I've had conversations this morning and I don't have to worry. COVID is here. You can know how easy it is for us to sign our documents. No more paper. Everything paperless. If you have internet, you're fine. And that's really where it was an existing technology, but it's taking existing technologies. They were there. It's Microsoft Word, it's DocuSign, it's SharePoint workflows, it is Excel. All of these exist and we sort of put it together. I had another friend, he was in Elect, but he went to Unilag. And he basically took Power, I think he used Power BI. A variant of it is Tableau, and both of them are actually free for students. So I probably will put up the link later on. But he took those existing technologies that they had in his company that they were paying for already. He took it and he used it to analyze network data for them to solve all the failures that they had. He was working for a telecom company in another country here in Africa, but he was able to put all of that together and use it to solve problems. And that's why I really, really want you guys to begin to think creatively. I will end with this. If it's a normal class, if it was a live class, we would have gone through this to ask you guys for ideas about how can you use your current engineering knowledge to solve this man's problem. Remember, I told you to look at him. That what else can we do about him? From your course in ME2, I can't remember the mechanics course, that is it better to pull or is it better to push? What else can we solve his problem? Then if you solve a problem like his own, you can imagine the thousands of them across Nigeria. Get a product that is so cheap, let's say it costs 50 naira or 100 naira, that makes them far more efficient. Again, is your level of practice, the space you have for practice are people like them. Before you get into the very big problem, but you would have been training your mind in the mechanism of solving problems. Because once you get your mind trained in it, by the time you have the opportunities on a global scale, on a Nigeria level, on a world scale, your mind is already used to using your engineering using your engineering training, using your science training, using your math skills to solve problems in real life. I've given you frameworks with which to think about it. Think about cost, think about processes, think about frameworks, think about dominant design, think about changing the design, think about how ease of delivery, thinking about making it easy for people to pay, making it easy for people to get service, making it easy for people to just make a phone call and just put everything together. I'm confident that you can do it. Thank you very much. I'll end here for now.
Thank you very, very, very much. Thank you very much for your presentations. So at this point, I'd like to actually throw the floor open to questions. So far, I haven't seen anyone post any question. And okay, so I'd like to raise a question here. And that is, you've been in the industry for a while. If I may ask, do you have, like, say, a list of top 3 skills that you propose that will be very beneficial? Yeah, we're talking about changing dominant design. I think I'll come back to that shortly. But then in the meantime, do you have any 3 top skills that you propose that, as particularly for students, 3 skills that you think we should really, really learn as of now? Maybe let me start from, well, Folu, you just finished speaking, so let me just start from you. There are 3 top skills that you propose that each student should learn.
Okay, so in terms of actually hard skills, I would say that maybe you have something like your Excel, be extremely good at it. Programming, learn at least 1 programming language, and be quite good at it. Be quite good at it. Presentation skills, be very good at it. Be practice presentations as often as you can. With those 3 things, I would say those are like the hard skills. There are softer skills in terms of people engagement, people management. But in terms of hard skills that you can sort of work on, I would say Excel, be very good at it in terms of analytics. Programming language, be extremely good at it. Presentation, be quite good at it.
Okay, thank you very much. And Dayo.
Thanks, Wale. So let me focus a bit on the soft skills, right? Okay. To me, 3 things, right? And I'll try to link them. Number 1 is people have to develop skills regarding how to filter information. We know that we're in an era where there's information overload, right? So anywhere you turn, we have torrents of information, right? And being able to sift through this information to get actionable insights, to find opportunities and trends, is a very useful skill. Because the creative person, the innovator, is someone who sees the same information that every other person has seen, or thinks a different thought, right? And takes different steps compared to what other people would have done. So for me, a very important and crucial skill that one needs to have is the ability to continuously scan the environment, be sensitive, watch whatever is going on, right? And you can ask, how do you do this? Of course, there are many options out there. Number 1 is you can listen to TED Talks, you can listen to subject matter experts in areas of interest, read books, listen or read publications like Harvard Business Review. So for me, the first one is environmental scanning. Keep scanning the environment for insights, for new trends, things that are going to happen 5 years from now. Even COVID-19, many people had talked about it, and people were still not prepared. So you could have actually sensed what was coming and prepared for it. So for me, number 1 is scanning. And number 2 is when you've scanned and you've seen the opportunities, again, you're not meant to handle all opportunities. You're not able to confront all challenges that we will face. So whichever opportunity you see that has your name written on it in terms of passion, in terms of what you really love to do, then settle down and acquire the skills that are required, technical skills. So you could go into programming, you could go into whatever it is that is required for you to be able to add value in that space. So for me, first, scan. Second, build the technical know-how. And then the third part, which is also very critical and which you guys don't really promote, is collaboration. So while we're students, you don't lecturers don't expect us to collaborate so much, right? You don't expect me to collaborate while sitting for an exam, right? But in the real world, you realize that people are, there's hardly anyone that can by themselves conceptualize a fully fledged idea. All we have are good ideas in the form of hunches. And those are, so I we combine it together, and all of a sudden you come up with something new and brilliant, right? And if you check a lot of innovators, that's how they've come up with the innovations. So coming up with you, number one, an idea because we're scanning the environment. Number two, you have some value you can add because you've built the required skills to be able to add value in that space. And then number three, learning how to work with people. There are many things that are to be done, and you do not have the wisdom, the strength, the wherewithal to handle them by yourself. You need to collaborate with people. And a lot of us come out of school with the same mindset of being competitive. I want to be the best in my team. I want to be the best in class. The reality is that when you get into the workplace, if you take that attitude in, you will never climb, right? You need to understand how to work with people, how to add value, right, to the team that you're functioning in and so on. So for me, those are the three skills from a soft skills standpoint that's very crucial to have. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, so just a quick comment. Both your videos are off, just to, in case you know, if that's by choice, you may want to turn them back on. That's Folu and Dayo. So just FYI. Okay, thank you very much. There's a question that was thrown on the floor. The class exercise that I believe that's the one that Folu gave has addressed my concern. How do we tackle the lower classes, especially the poor, with this technology? So, yeah, I don't know who wants to take up on that. Folu, do you want to take that up?
Again, is my sense. I think that I'll probably also comment on it later on. But my sense is that sometimes we look at trying to solve world hunger, meaning you want to take on the largest challenges in the world when the person next door to you really needs your help. Really needs your organizing skills, really needs your basic skills. Many of us have mothers who are entrepreneurs. We have fathers who are entrepreneurs. But because they don't have a website and they don't have a big headphones and they are not sitting in a hub, we don't give them the fancy title startup. But the reality is that for all intents and purposes, they are startups, because basically somebody started them up. Yes, you may not give them the fancy, but the idea really is that, especially for us as next generation engineers to some of these parents, is to be able to sort of go into their business during this time that you're stuck at home and say, sir, how can I help you? Mommy, how can I help you? I've learned this. I can layer on top of, and I've seen that as really, really beautiful partnerships, where you see a mom, there's one of them here in Lekki Phase 1, I stay in Lagos, so I'm saying here in Lekki Phase 1, where the mom had been doing catering for a very long time. Then she gets the younger generation who basically put it on Instagram, and the business multiplies. They put it on Instagram, put it on WhatsApp, put it on all the existing technologies that we play with, and the business moves to a new level. A similar business like that, I don't know how many of you have watched this movie that was sort of trending, The Train. It was done by Mount Zion. I don't know if you've watched it, you can sort of just wave your hand. But really what happens is that you had the parent generation who basically did stage drama. I knew the parents. They did stage drama, they did few things on TV. But the children took YouTube and have basically taken it to an international level. Now, their parents were stuck, as it were. Not, the word is not stuck, but they were at a particular level. But the children are taking the same messages. They are now bringing it to a wider audience. Essentially, the old and the new coming together. My encouragement is there are lots of people who are standing next to you that you can use your current skill set to solve their problem. It benefits them and it benefits you. Instead of trying to start the next Google, figure out the fact that, again, to the picture that I showed on the screen of the guy pushing the push cart, is There are over 100,000 of these. If you make 1,000 naira out of all of them, or putting something that sort of just works, you make it out in, let's say, you manufacture it in China, you make it for 500, you make a 500 profit, 500 naira profit, multiply it by the 100,000 of them that are all over Nigeria. You're already a millionaire. You are getting close to your 30 billion in your account. There are other ways of getting it. So for me is I'll basically say that start from where you are, start from the people around you. It trains your mindset and it solves problems.
Thank you. Dayo, do you want to pitch in?
No, I think Folu has done justice to that. Let's move to other questions.
Okay, so there's a question on the floor. I will take it shortly, but I wanted to just quickly, you mentioned Series A funding a couple of times. So I just wanted to ask, what is Series A funding and how can one access something like that?
Okay, so when you set up, let's say when you conceive an idea, a business idea, and you want to start up, typically, if you're being realistic, at least you should have some kind of savings, right, that you use to kickstart things, right? And then after a while, typically you approach your family, if you're married, maybe your spouse, right, and close relatives or friends, right? So again, move things. So you move in phases. Phase one might be that you had just enough funds to create the business plan and to do some kind of market survey, and then you run out of funds, right? And then again, you went to your spouse, you went to your family and close relations to raise funds to take it to the next level. Where, as an example, you created the prototype of the product, right? Now, as you start all those preparatory steps, right, just to move, to gain traction, you get to a point where you probably run out of funds and out of people that can give you this kind of, family support, right? And now you need to go out and look for, let's call them institutional investors, right? So the first time that you go out to get seed funding, that typically is the Series A, right? Where you create, obviously you must have registered the company, you have a shareholding structure, you have corporate governance practices in place, right? And then you go out to investors, you can call them angel investors and so on, to give you funding. That's the first time. Again, those people come in and you have to be smart, right, from experience, to have registered the company and at least have something that you can claim is your own IP in the entire thing. Otherwise, it might take the entire thing from you. So that you can negotiate with them and give them a percentage shareholding that still gives you good standing. So your shareholding must be well over 51% at that stage, right? Again, those guys might help you depending to move the product from maybe you're just selling in the local community or you have your prototype to reaching a larger market, right? But you still wouldn't have reached to break even. And then you need to, again, to reach a bigger market, maybe you want to move from Lagos to now cover the whole of Nigeria, or from Lagos, you want to go to Accra, West Africa, and so on. Then you may have Series B, where again, you will call for funds. And some smart investors, Series A investors, at the time when you are calling for Series B, they offload their shares, right? So it's like that. And you see all these guys, Combo 360, Crowd Invest and so on. That's what they've all done, right? They started with their own funds. When they've gotten some traction, transactions are moving, right? Of course, they're not yet profitable, but the idea is solid and they can see good projections. Then they go out, they reach out for Series A investors who are not like your family and friends. These are institutional investors. They just want to make profits, right? And then you build like that. So that's the general idea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. So let's take the question that's on the floor. If one already has an idea or engineering problem to solve, but has little or no knowledge of how to go about it, how does the person start? Dayo, probably let's start from you.
Sure. So in my own opinion, again, we have demographics that are similar, right? Nigeria, if you compare Nigeria with Pakistan, almost the same thing, right? In terms of GDP, well, they're a bit stronger than us. In terms of level of development, education, similar, right? There's probably hardly any challenge you see in Nigeria that they don't have there, right? Or if you go to India, So if I were in this person's shoes, the first thing I'll do is to go online and research, right? There's nothing new under the sun, as I say. Someone else somewhere must have had similar challenge and they would have tackled it, right? What can I learn from these guys? That's what I'll do as a first step, right? And then the second thing is, if you're able to find something, it could be academic research, it could be products that are advertised online, all manner of things. Now, based on whatever I've found, I'll try to adapt it to my circumstance and localize it, right? So because there are cultural issues, people, the way they design products and services again is based on how they view life. How we practice things in Nigeria is a bit different. So obviously you need to localize what you have. And then when you now have a refined idea in Nigeria, again, I that you find senior colleagues, people that have gone out there, they've done it's manufacturing, at least you've seen them manufacture something and sell it profitably, then go to them and say, this is what I have in mind. What do you think? And that's what I was saying earlier on. Your idea, because you will be blindsided, you're so excited about the business idea, the prospects, that there are many sites that you would have overlooked. And someone that has done that before, something similar, will be able to spot all those blind spots and guide you. And that's what I was talking about, ideas colliding. So first, what is the problem? Statement, define the problem. Is there a market segment for this? Yes. Go out there, check what has been done elsewhere. Can I learn from it so I don't reinvent the wheel? I bring it, that solution here, I adapt it, I localize it, right? Add some kind of value to it, that's of intellectual value as well. Then I take it to someone and rub minds with someone who has done something similar, just to see if there's some things that I'm overlooking. Now, based on that, at least you have a core concept, right? And then you can build on from there. There are many, of course, many more steps, but for me, that's how I'll tackle that kind of issue. If I find an opportunity that I want to pursue, and I have no idea how to go about it, those are the steps I'll take.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Okay, so I want to move on to the next question. I'm kind of looking at time right now. I promise we'll end in about an hour. We've gone over an hour, so let me just move on to the next question. There is a point in life where you feel that you know exactly what you want to do, but that point passes and what you want to do changes or improves. You are not sure that this is what you want to do, but time passes and changes and or improves, and so you are so sure. The skills you thought you needed change with time. What advice could you give someone who is confused about the skills needed? Because time will not wait for you to gain new skills. Maybe let's start with Folu on this one.
Okay, so I kind of like the question because what you have just described is life. That's how life is. Every stage, every time, it's a new demon that you tackle at that level. So I have three sons. But for a child, you start, for my son, initially, the first thing, all he needed to do to be successful at some point in life is just to be able to crawl. Then at some point in time, the skill he needed to learn was to be able to walk. Then at some point in time, he just needed to be able to make any sound. You can say whatever rubbish, but as long as he's making sound, we will clap for him. But as he moves through life, then he now needs to be able to solve almighty formula. Then later on, you figure out that almighty formula is not as mighty as we thought it was. Then very soon, you'll now be dealing with left-hand rule, right-hand rule, and you're not even sure who is the ruler. But very soon, you are now going to be catch up Maxwell, all these dead people. But again, it's just the nature of life. Then you are done with that. Then you now enter the workplace. And if you enter the workplace, irrespective of the organization you go to, at the level you start from, a technical level, then you get to a level where it's more of managerial, of supervising people. Then you get to a level where it's mostly strategic, where you frankly don't know what happens on a day-to-day, but you basically set direction, and your job is a lot of mentoring and developing people. But that, what you have just described, is life. At each level, and if you think back to your secondary school, is that at each level, you just need to be able to understand what is the requirement. In primary one, there was a requirement. In primary two, there was a requirement. In primary three, there was a requirement. And as you move through each level, it's just to be able to understand it. Okay, so you described life. All right, so your question is that what do you do? The skills that you need to, your skills change with time. What advice do you give to somebody who is confused about the skills that you need? So once you get a scan, first of all, my encouragement is begin to scan the future long before. It's not when you get to the E201 exam before you figure out that, they will ask me question. No, you know that once you enter the first class, you are going to end up in an exam hall. Before that skill gets tested, that's why you've been taking preparations for it all the while. In practical terms in life is attending a session like this is good. It tells you that those of us who have been there for 15 years, we are coming to tell you these are the skill sets that we are looking for. So a session like this is good. At the end of Dio's presentation, he gave a few classes, Coursera, Udemy, Khan Academy. I use it personally. I learn new skills every day because I'm preparing for it. For example, I woke up 5 a.m. this morning. I was studying about some particular countries and trying to understand their tax environment. Why? I'm looking at some things that are interesting in those various countries. But again, it's preparing for that future. I don't have everything I need now. I was having a conversation with my wife that, see, you know what? I need a consultant who can come and teach me, who can come and train me. Every single day, I reach out to my colleagues and I say, train me, teach me. I remember I visited Dayo about a year or two ago. I sat down in his sitting room, and for about 2 hours, he was teaching me about stuff that I don't know. Reach out to people, go online, search. And in this era of internet, life is incredibly easy. I'm glad I have quite a number of the folks in my set on the same WhatsApp group. We don't spend time abusing one another and sharing things that Davido or somebody else is doing. We are sharing information that is valuable to each other. We are reaching out to each other. Reach out to people, plug into the network, especially plug into people who are ahead of you to be able to tell them how did you overcome the challenges in the next set. Just the same way I expect that part 3 people are talking to part 4 people and part 4 people are talking to part 5 people. Give us your past questions. Is that same lessons that you have learned in secondary school, in university, that is going to be useful for you in life? Reaching out to those who are ahead of you to begin to sort of teach you about stuff, to begin to educate you about stuff, to begin to say that, okay, all right, I'm thinking of doing something in Oyo State. I've been doing stuff in Lagos. How do you do it in Oyo State? I call my friends who are in Oyo State. And that's how we help each other. Reach out into networks, go online. There's an incredible level of resource that is available online. Useful stuff. Don't waste too much of your time fighting with people on Twitter. It's a waste of your time. Don't waste time too much looking at things on Instagram. But they are very, 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 very useful sites where I have good knowledge where you can build your required skills, and I'm confident that you will do well.
Okay, so while you are talking, a follow-up question seems to have come for that. There are a couple of questions above that. We'll come back to them, but I'm thinking of just taking this follow-up or follow with you. It says that you have to look really far into the future in life to anticipate all the skills you will need then learn them. But if that's your focus, won't you become a jack of all trades and master of none?
Okay,
so
the follow-up with that is what I gave the example before is this. In your part 1, all you are required to do to get your 5.0 GPA is to be good at part 1 courses, not to be good at 5 courses. So if while you are doing part 1, you are worrying about E501, of course you will fail massively. Road 1 is waiting for you. But if all you do is focus on part 1 courses, trust me, you will do well. And when you get to part 2, and people ask me that, hey, Folu, what was your secret? I tell people that, frankly, for me, it was pretty much that. In this semester, I have 8 courses. That's all I need to pass. And to the next semester is those 8 courses that I don't bother myself about, when I get to that bridge, I will cross it. Again, so that's my encouragement is your life now. What's the skill set that you need? And your life in the next phase. What is the skill set that you need? It's just those two, I would say, that keep 80% of your attention on, well, what do I need to excel now? And what do I need to prepare for tomorrow? Don't get yourself bothered too much about being a good great grandfather now. Wait till the time when you have the grandchildren first, or even the children first. Then you sort that one out. But right now, it's focused on where you are, which, again, to the last line of my presentation, start with what you have, start where you are. If you are excellent in that, I'm roughly comfortable with it. I believe I've answered the question. I saw a question from Kola Ogumba, who intends to be, is engineering education a scam? I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe because personally, I think it is useful for me. I know people have said that they taught us a lot of stuff that was not useful for us. I'll be honest. One of the few times I've had to use what do you call the simultaneous equations. I remember one night, I needed to figure something out, but I needed to solve simultaneous equation with 6 unknowns. Because really there were 6 unknowns, there was no way I could know it. There was no internet information, there was no resource. But of course, that was the first and probably the only time in the 15 years that I've used simultaneous equation, but trust me, it worked for me. So that day I was grateful for the, I don't know, long hours of classes. But I don't think it's a scam. Dayo, do you want to comment on that? I think there are other people who can also probably comment on that.
Yeah, Dayo, so maybe you comment
Thank
on
you,
that. They also take the other question that I skipped a little earlier, the one about the skill sets, skill set demand, and the one in vogue. Maybe let's just read it out because of the YouTube audience. But is it okay to flow with the skill set in demand or in vogue, or is it just okay to follow what you have in mind initially? Talking about skill sets.
So I'm of the opinion that each individual, so there's no one size fits all solution, right? You have certain individuals that have strengths, that have interests, and you need to understand. So when I asked Socrates a question, what are the 3 most important things in life? And he gave the answer. Point 1, know yourself. Point 2, know thyself. Point 3, know thyself. So the fact that what is in vogue is, as just an example, Python programming, doesn't mean I have the head for programming, right? So I'm not going to follow everyone to do it. I need to understand myself, my strengths, my uniqueness, and focus on consolidating on those things. So that's just a general statement. So to say you want to follow what's in vogue, for me, I feel that's probably not the good way, right? It could also be that based on your strengths and your interests, what's in vogue is exactly what you should pursue. Perfect. But the most important thing is know yourself, know yourself, know yourself. I think that's important. The second thing is that, as you will see, in this maybe many years back, right? If you're going to battle, right? Each, like 2 kingdoms were fighting, each kingdom had a strategy. And then they go into the war front, and whoever had the best strategy and resources would win. So obviously, you have to keep your strategy to yourself. So you see, when you watch all these movies, right? You see, the king giving command to all the archers now, and then these guys, and they come with a surprise, and all of a sudden they win. But when you take that into business world, it was like that. That initially, companies would come up with strategic plans, and only executive management will know what the strategy is, right? The challenge they had was that, obviously, if nobody understands the strategy, people cannot read minds, so they cannot execute, right? So at the end of the day, they realized that the strategies were not being achieved, or were not delivering the results they wanted because people didn't understand. So from a strategy management standpoint, companies began to realize that your strategy must be written in plain book, black and white, and from the head of the organization all the way to the janitor, everyone needs to understand strategy. So your strategy, where am I going to? Your strategy as an organization has to be clear. But because the strategy is unique to you and unique to your circumstances as an organization, your competitor cannot easily replicate it, right? So if you go on, and I can assure you, you'll find the strategy of all these companies, clearly visible. Why am I saying this? As an individual, I'm bringing it back to an individual level now. It's the same thing. You have a thought in your mind, this is my plan, right? This is the direction I should go for my future. And you're keeping it. I don't want to share it with anybody else, because once I share it, they know my plans and they copy me. It's all bullshit. If your plans are based on your own individual strengths, your individual circumstances, and the things that you're passionate for, even when you share that plan with someone else, they cannot replicate it, because it is who you are. You own it, right? And where I'm going to is, don't hide and say, my plan, I keep it to myself, because you may be totally wrong. And that's how I was talking about collaboration before. Go to a mentor, go to someone who has seen more than you've seen, share, rub minds with them. What an adult sees sitting down, a child standing on a tree would not see, right? You have guys here, a lot of our classmates are here, many thanks to them for joining, right? They have 15 years, 16 years industry experience. They can tell you the trend for the next 10 years, what is coming, what are the skills that we need in the industry. We all know it, right? And if you go to people like that and share and try to rub minds with them, they will guide you rather than saying my plan, my plan, my plan. There's nothing to hide. Like, go out, meet people, rub minds with them, and they will help you sharpen the plans, right? They help you sharpen your strategy. So for me, don't keep anything to say my strategy. There's nothing like your strategy. Be open, rub minds with people. If it's yours, it's yours. That's my own personal beliefs in that regard. I hope I've been able to answer that question. What?
Yeah, thank you very, very, very much. Okay, so I think at this point, I really want to wrap things up for the day. Just try to see if there's any question I have skipped, but it seems like we approximately have taken every one of them, and we actually have kind of gone above what I promised, and I really want to take it too long. So I just want to thank everyone who has been here, and I particularly want to thank our two industry professionals today, Adedayo, Omotunde, and Folu Dele-Ijagbulu. Thank you very much for taking time out, and thank you very much for your presentations and for the answers to questions. For everyone who has attended as well, I want to say thank you, and I really hope you have gotten quite a bit from this. I did a poll a little earlier on, and 81%, actually 81% of the 37 people who voted said that they definitely would like to have more sessions on this topic. And a number of people also talk about the fact that this session has been helpful. So I really appreciate that. And thank you very much for joining. Pascal, for those from our sets that also joined in, I want to say thank you very much. Folu, you want to say something?
Yeah, again, want to appreciate a lot of people from our set. We have Kunle Beyoko, Kola Ogumba, special mention. You have Shola Olaoshun. She was the class rep of our set. We have Zeno, we have Tosin Elori. We have, I believe we have Harrison, we have Femi Aguade, we have Rocco Dairo, we have Biola Ogundijo, we have Papa Sonne, Sunday, we have Olufilani. I hope I've not missed out anybody. We're really grateful to everybody for sort of joining us.
Thank you very, very much. Thanks for helping me actually with that. I was screwing through a number of things. Yeah, so thank you very, very much to everyone for joining in. I believe we, so there was a form that was sent out a little earlier before, I think on Wednesday or so, for those who intended to attend. So if you fill the form, your email address and phone number, we have that. So if we're going to have another session or something like this, you get the notification about that. So I think this is a convenient point to wrap up, and just to say thank you once again, and God bless you. Yeah, God bless you. Yeah, may I just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, bye.
Bye. Okay, so maybe I should mention that the Hangout